I'm going to start with the last bit of the introduction, in a section which I've entitled Playing God. So the Francis Crick Institute is the first research body outside China to be allowed to carry out this sort of research. What is it that makes it so controversial, that makes it so special to be able to work with human embryos as opposed to a different animal model?
What the experiments that Kathy Macking is going to do will be to modify the genes in those embryos using a new technique, it's called CRISPR-Cas, which allows very precise manipulation of the genome. Now that's been possible in many life forms, including yeast, upon which I work, which is not controversial, so I'm rather boring, and the media is never interested in anything I do. But it's only been possible to do it in this very precise way with mammals, and therefore humans, in the last year or two.
Do you think religious arguments have any place in deciding the moral acceptability of this research?
Whether such research should be done or not is a question for society, and you need to have discussions within society. Religion plays a part in that. What I will say, and I've worked in various countries in the world, we probably do this sort of discussion and debate better in the UK than anywhere else I know.
Do you ever think some of the experiments carried out in the name of engaging the public get a bit silly?
Yes, I do. I mean, the glowing in the dark, which is a protein being expressed, GFP it's called, which I use a great deal, but again in boring old yeast, so nobody cares about that. Sometimes we get it wrong. That was an example. But we do get it right. You know, we have Tim Peake, and then we have some people on the telly who are really very, very good presenters. And sometimes I get irritated with my colleagues who point out, oh, Brian Cox made a mistake, you know? He said this or said that, when they've never, ever been faced with a television camera and how incredibly difficult it is on the 8th or 9th take to still try and keep the words meaning something. So we should engage, particularly those who do it well. Now, when we teach science in schools, often there's too much emphasis on facts being delivered that are chiseled in stone or with granite. And what is perhaps not dealt with is how were those facts developed? Why do we know that this is a reliable view of the world? Because if we just teach the facts or the conclusions, then why should a pupil leaving school believe the science of astronomy over the art of astrology? You know, if you're just going to assert things, then astrology asserts equally well as astronomy. But if you know what astronomy is based upon, then you'll know that those assertions are coming from a particular approach, constant testing, skeptical ways of thinking about the natural world, which means you then have reliability and trust in the scientific process. What I just started getting interested when I was 8 or 9 years of age. Anyway, I read in the newspaper, this was 1958, I think, I read in the newspaper that Sputnik 2, which had a dog called Laika in it, was going to pass over London, where I lived, about one orbit before it burnt up. And I had a dog, so I felt this affinity to this dog Laika, Soviet dog indeed. And so I went out to the front garden, which faced the south, and at 8:13, or whenever it's said in the paper, this bright star just came over the sky. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, this man-made object, we don't think about it now, but this was only the second man-made object in space. I mean, I didn't see Sputnik 1. And it came over the sky, and I was in my pajamas, okay? And it passed my house, and I ran after it, you know? I ran after it, because I was only 8 or something. And I was trying to catch it, and I kept meeting people and saying, that's Sputnik 2, you know? And they had no idea what the hell I was, you know, this kid running down the street in his pajamas, pointing at the sky. The event you're describing was poor old James Delingpole, who not many people like because he's rather acerbic in his writing. So we got talking with the camera, and I realized after about 30 seconds that I didn't have to do anything but just let him talk. And he talked, and then he did say some stupid things. I think he was going down the direction of why should we listen to the scientists, why should they understand things. So I then just asked him, if he had a tumor, would he go and listen to the clinical scientists about which to say how it should be treated, or would he perhaps drink orange juice, for example, or some other thing? And it's true, something like that, I can't remember. And it is true, the poor old James, his mouth went like this, he just didn't know what to say. He didn't like me after that, I have to say. And he said I was his least favorite Nobel Prize winner, even worse than Yasser Arafat, as far as he was concerned. Britain is spending on public funding of science 0.49% of our GDP at the moment. The EU, G7, OPEC average is 0.67%, the average. If you go to Germany, it's 0.87%, roughly. If you go to Korea, it'll be 1.3%. We are absolutely at the bottom of the league table. The amazing thing is that we are second only to the United States in the world for the quality and quantity of research we do. Yet we're right down at the bottom, just on the edge of dysfunctionality. So we have a way to go, and we have to give government, they may say they like science, they do, a lot of people like Osborne do, but they've got to put their money where their mouth is, and they're not doing it well enough.